Hey, you like cars? Well, it's the end of the road. You know, boys to men. Although we've come to the end of the road, not the end. Just the end of this particular year, the end of 2023. It's my last episode of the podcast I'm putting up. And, you know, as I always say, how are y'all doing? How has your year been treating you? Or how has your year treated you? What do you look forward to in the next year? I look forward to starting this episode, though. And you know how we get this going. We're never going to stop. Episode 40. So, 40 episodes. Since January of 2023, I started this podcast, and I've made it all the way to 40 episodes, which is, hey, I'm impressed. I'm thankful. I'm happy for what I've accomplished and what I've created and the people that have tuned in. But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to kind of what I'm doing next and what comes up next. So we have a little bit of news, nothing crazy. As you know, the end of the year kind of is in a lull. We're trying to wait till the next year to do things, but there's a little bit of things that I want to talk about. You know, just two little things, and then we're going to talk about what's the next. What am I doing next? What's CarQuicks up to? What's the podcast going to do? One of the news that I had seen, one of the things that I had read about was another EV car. But the point of reason why I wanted to bring this one up is because I kind of laughed to myself when I was reading this. And the company that is making a new EV or is trying to introduce a global EV car makes cell phones. And that company is, you know, I'm not going to act like I know how to pronounce this name correctly because I've heard it pronounced 900 different times, but it's Xiaomi. Xiaomi? Xiaomi? Yo, what do I know? The phone's not even sold in the U.S. for a variety of reasons that they don't trust the company. For whatever reason, it's banned in the U.S., but it's sold everywhere else in the world. And it's like number 5 on the list of Android phone makers. But they're making an EV, as you can see on the screen. I'm not mad at how this looks. Very McLaren in the front end, little Porsche Taycan, some Audi e-tron on the rear. The gentleman that actually designed this, his name is Sawyer Lee, used to work for BMW. Clearly, listen, what he designed here, you can tell he ain't at BMW because we don't have a grill the size of the car. So that tells you he got out of Dodge before things really went left at the BMW design studio. However, the reason why it's funny to me is because we've been here before, right? We've been here when companies that aren't inherently car manufacturers decide that they want to jump into the pool. In EVs, even though there's less to develop when it comes to a combustion engine and all of the parameters and things that you need to do to create a proper combustion engine isn't inside of an EV, it's still hard to make a car. It doesn't matter if you think it's easier to get a supplier for an EV motor and you only got to get a single speed transmission and so on and so forth. The software and the driving dynamics still are up at the highest level of engineering in order to make a good car. So here's what they have on paper. The base model is a 294 horsepower, 295 foot-pounds of torque, single motor, 0 to 60, 5.3 seconds. Then there's an all-wheel drive dual motor setup that makes 664 horsepower, 14 foot-pounds of torque, 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. Listen, those stats are so normal in the EV range of how fast these cars can be because of instant torque that, I mean, it's not going to blaze a headline. What's blazing the headline is who's making this car and if it's actually going to be a viable option. So they have their own range and they use a China light duty test in order to show the range, which they say take with a heavy grain of salt and optimism because the base model one is said to do 417 miles per charge and the all-wheel drive dual motor is 497. Listen, take that with the heaviest grain of salt and optimism because those are some high numbers. Now, if they hit them, even based off the UK or the US based way of doing EV range, hey, all the merrier. The thing that is going to be the true test here is the fact that they only make cell phones. And to go from cell phones to cars, even with Sony had the Afeela, That was like almost a year ago now. I haven't heard anything about that car. The same thing, even with Apple. Apple talked about they're making a car. Listen, I know y'all make great phones. Even, the companies in China, Sony, all these companies can make other devices. But to make a car, to then dive into making a car, listen, I'm not going to be the beta test on that. I might beta test the next iPad or whatever new Android phone comes out. But for certain, I'm not getting batch one of the cell phone company's brand new car. Now, what is it going to turn into? I don't know, but we've been here before. Remember Daewoo? They were making fridges, microwaves, VCRs, and then they made cars. And I can tell you how that ended. Because if there's a Daewoo on the street that you see, that's actually a rare car now. That actually might be worth something. That's a relic. So they're going to make a car. I don't really know. We don't have any other news other than the fact that I actually don't mind how it's designed and how it looks. It definitely is still kind of egg-shaped in how it looks. I just want them to make the silhouette of these EVs to be a little bit smoother. Like, I'll give Tesla's props because the Model S looks nice. It's a nice looking sedan. It's not this big greenhouse effect that they're doing for drag coefficiencies and things of that nature. Like, some of this stuff gotta look a little bit better if you're trying to get the masses to adopt this idea that EVs is the only thing we have in the future, which, as you see with the current market of EVs and GM even taking back some of the sales on the Blazer EV, and everybody realizes that, listen, you can't jump off the bridge with one option only and assume that everybody's going to follow suit. There's so many other details and things in the nuances of the setup with EVs that have to be addressed. Infrastructure is one of them. Like, where do you live? How far do you drive? Things like that. So they're making one, and hey, we'll see what happens. Everybody's going to jump in and try to make a car. Everybody's going to try to get their hands on it and to do anything they can. But what will it be in the end? I don't know. Listen, their phones are cool. That's all I got. I mean, I can't gauge a car off of what you do when it comes to a handheld device. I mean, we're in two different galaxies when it comes to what you can do. Now, speaking about a car and speaking about something that kind of hits home to me before I, wrap, I'm making this episode kind of quick. I'm just kind of wrapping things up. And if you hear some fireworks banging in the background, it's because my neighborhood got it cracking early, okay? Even though I'm recording this now. The Toyota GR Yaris and the GR Corolla. We're going to get to my car after this too. But they're making an automatic transmission for it. Now, before the Save the Manual people, I am a member, I'm a president, I'm a CEO, I am a flag-waving manual transmission preservation society, Save the Manuals connoisseur. So I understand. Hearing automatics in cars that only come in manual currently usually feels like there's some dilution in what we're doing. But if I pull back a bit and I just look at it from the bird's eye and just understanding performance cars and what's going on or what they're doing, I'm not mad at this, right? So the CEO, Akio Toyoda, he is behind the development of an automatic transmission they're making for the GR Yaris called the DAT, direct automatic transmission. What they're doing is making an automatic transmission that I assume from the name is kind of leaning towards what dual clutches and how they perform. And what they're doing is making one that doesn't have the lag and laziness that automatics are usually associated with when it comes to performance cars. What he has said, and I quote, is that it's a game changer. And one of the quotes he said was, "There's no time lost when shifting. So the gap between myself and the pros was much smaller than usual. I can just concentrate on braking and accelerating." That is the CEO, Mr. Marizo himself, that they made a whole GR Corolla model after. Now, here's where the credit is being given, right? That gentleman knows how to drive. He races. He's a true driver. So if anybody was going to sit behind the wheel and test and design and help implement some way of having an automatic transmission in a car that's very driver engaging, he'd be the guy. Now, come January 2024, this has already been developed. They've already gotten, I guess, to the where they needed to. They probably tested it on their Toyota test track they have out in Japan. So they've already gotten to the point where it's going to be slated for production in January 2024. That's next month. Or starting tomorrow, maybe. Who knows? At the GR factory in Japan. I think it's at the Motomachi factory or the city where it's built in the GR factory. And they're going to start building the automatic for the GR Yaris. Now, here's the good thing, right? The bad can be somebody that wants it to keep pure and only for the people that want to drive manual. But the truth of the matter is everybody ain't driving manuals regardless of how much we want to save them. They're just not. And the most people that are buying them are the enthusiasts like us. And the people that are buying, on the other hand, is probably 5-1 for automatic. So it'll help the market, right? As a GR Corolla owner, I suspect that we are going to get the same transmission because it's being built in the same factory as the GR Corolla. It's the same engine, same drivetrain, pretty much the same body dimensions. We have a 4-door Corolla. They have it on a GR Yaris, but everything probably slides in or slots in exactly the same. So I imagine by sometime mid-year or even just the next 2025 model year for the GR Corolla, we're going to have an automatic option. And the benefit here is that if more people get their hands on this car, then the aftermarket and the parts that are created and made, it increases. We get a better amount of stuff made. We get more people enjoying the car. We get bigger events for GR Corolla meets and that. Listen, I'm all for as many hands getting on a car I love and the aftermarket and the parts and stuff becoming available, because without that, if we don't have any of that, then we're just here blazing our own trail, and then nobody's going to really care about what we're building and what we're going to do. So listen, automatic GR Yaris is around the corner. If you thought about getting a Yaris, if you're thinking about getting a GR Corolla and you're like, I don't want to drive a manual all day, then hey, think about this DAT coming out. Listen, I'm not knocking it. Listen, if I got to the point where I was really tired of driving a manual every day at work, daily driving the GR Corolla, I'm not knocking the DAT trans if it performs like they say. The benefit here is it's not a CVT, because that's the mistake that Subaru made in the WRX, throwing that thing in there, calling it the sport transmission, whatever they said. It wasn't. Okay, this is a proper. Same way they put in the Supra. Supra as an automatic. It surely didn't stop the aftermarket people from buying that car hands over fist. So listen, it can be something beneficial. Now, what about my car, right? To end this year, I got a few other parts coming. I'm working with a friend of mine, Chris. We got some Racer X parts coming in. I have some interior mods that are coming in for my car. Something simple. I'm getting the Tom's Racing door card protector skins that go to the bottom of the door card because I got scuff marks on mine. I was sick of looking at them, and they had a deal on the one only set that's probably in the US, and I had to get it. So I have that coming in. I have other ideas. I mean, really, as I said before, suspension, aesthetics, front lip, rear lip. I really like the way the Grow design front end and front body kit and all that stuff looks. And I'm probably leaning that way in order to get that. What I want to do with it, do I want to paint match it? Do I want to have it black? I don't know yet, but I'm pretty sure that is where I'm headed because that's what I like and like what I see there. Then it's wheels, but I do want to take it to the next step. I do want to take it to the next level of aesthetics so I can be at car shows, events, and things like that, help boost even the podcast and other things I want to do. And the podcast is going on to season 2. A little bit of this background that y'all been seeing this entire year is going to change a little bit. I got a couple new things I'm going to add to this background. I'm going to change a couple things up just to keep it going, just to keep it flowing. As I've learned how to record this podcast, how I've learned from reading other podcasts and other videos and YouTube, I've learned different techniques. I've learned different things to do and to apply, and I want to apply it to the next season. So we're going on to season 2. I hope to be able to interview people that have very interesting cars. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a podcast or I'm going to do it like a video series on YouTube only I guess it can be a podcast in a way. Because I want to talk to drivers of unique cars that I see. I want to talk to why they love the car they like. And honestly, that's not going to be an easy thing because I'm using somebody else's time. So I've got to find time that they want to actually come out and do something like that and spend the 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes picking their brain and just understanding who they are and why they chose the car and what drives them to wanting to own that car. What's their passion behind it? Hopefully I can get that set up. I know I will because, listen, I started this at the beginning of this year. And I said I was going to get to certain goals, and I've reached those. And so I'm going to keep putting more in front of me so that I know I have somewhere to go and somewhere to add to. So this is not the end. I hope to have this, not even hope. I'm going to have this podcast in the top ranks of the automotive podcast coming soon. By next year, it will be noticed. It will be notified. You will be notified. I will too. Okay. I will be at the SEMA show. I'm going to have my media credentials. I'm getting to where I want to get to. And I've enjoyed the time I've had doing this. I like talking to myself in a room to a camera, to people that want to hear my voice and say, I like what you're doing. I appreciate all the comments, the people that have left comments, the dislikes, the people that probably clicked on a video one time and said, I don't like his face, and then went on to the next thing. It's all good. I appreciate your time. And for the people that have left comments and said, I want to see this video, this series, and this podcast do well, I mean, that's the biggest encouragement I see, because it says I'm going a direction that I love to do, because I do this for myself, honestly. I don't even do this podcast in a sense of trying to impress anybody else on the other end that's watching it. I want to uniquely be myself. So if somebody sees this and says, hey, he's being himself, I like that. I'm going to listen to what he says. And that's why I'm here. Now, while this episode doesn't have a bunch of news, it's really just a wrap up of what I've done, what I've talked about, all the news that we went throughout the year. It's been exciting and fun. I can't wait for what's coming next. One of the big events is I have the Houston Auto Show coming up. I'm going to figure out a way to record something there, because I have an idea. And my idea is going to pan into something else that I want to do. And then maybe it turns into a podcast episode of me talking about the cars that are in there. But I have a very fun and unique way that I'm going to go about this. Then we have the Tokyo Auto Salon, which is going to be huge. A friend of mine named David Lee, he's going to that in person. One day I'm going to get to that show in person. I promise. Maybe next year, 2025, not 2024, but we're going to get there. New parts of the GR Corolla are going to be announced. The aftermarket, my love of the Japanese JDM scene, is going to be on full display come February when that show comes. So it's going to be a very exciting podcast episode to do. And all the car news. There's so much that's coming out. There's EVs, there's regular cars, there's everything. There's trucks, there's sports cars, there's a variety of things. Maybe there's a component of this podcast I'm going to start writing. I don't know that just yet. I do like writing things down, but I also like talking more about the thoughts that come to my head in a very organic fashion. So this podcast is going to lend itself to things that I want to do. I have my first review coming up. I held on to the review for the minivan, the Sienna 2023 version that we have, because I wanted to kind of start off the next year with something new. That's going to be a YouTube series. So if you follow CarQuicks, the podcast, my YouTube channel is the same name, CarQuicks. And there's going to be videos on that too. And when that comes, I'm going to be there. Okay. I'm going to be there to do it. It's going to be a great time. And like I always say, y'all have done what you wanted and do as you wish and do as you made. Oh yeah. It's not even a way you say that word. But as I always say, do as you wish and do as you may. It's Cameron Biggs, your host. This is CarQuicks. I'll be back. I'll see y'all for season 2. Peace.